Before the show starts, again, just like to say a big thank you to the sponsors, Air Canada Cargo, ATC Aviation, Bombelli, Cool Dolly and Cool Storage Solution, Etihad Cargo, and Sarco Airport Equipment. Thank you all so much. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are again, another session on the digital event for pharma. And I've got three great guests. A couple have really challenged my problem with pronunciation of names. So I do apologize in advance to poor old Jez Palmer. It's a difficult one to pronounce, Jez, but welcome on board. So first guest is Jez Palmer, Senior Director, Partner Alliance Airlines with CSafe Global. So thanks very much, Jez.
Good to be here, Chris, and thank you very much for running this event.
No, it's a great pleasure. Really, it's you guys we're thankful for. And now I come to Yulia Celetaria. I do hope that's right, Yulia.
That was right.
Thank heavens for that. Now, Yulia is the Healthcare Director with Volga-Dnepr Group, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the invite. And
last but by no means least, another easy name to pronounce, Chiara Venuti, who's the Business Development Director for Airline Partners with SkyCell. So thank you so much, Chiara.
Thank you, Chris.
Is that right? I think I did okay. The one
Bravissimo.
Obviously Palmer. I managed to get that one off Pat, Jez.
You did good.
I'll send some more money.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, guys. So before we kick off with the discussion, what I'd like you all to do, please, is if you can just let me know what your main responsibilities are and how has this last 6 to 8 months affected you in your position and the business that you're with. So, Yulia, would you like to kick off?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, the last 6 to 8 months have changed completely, not only the complete world, but our company as well. We are going through the big restructuring and moving towards healthcare direction more and more. So now I'm responsible for the healthcare product or industry within the group of the company. So we would like to offer this unique product, to the world with delivering unique solutions to even the most remote areas. And yes, indeed, there was a lot of focus on, PPE, all this masks and breathing machines in the beginning of the year. Now we're shifting a little bit more towards a different direction, vaccine. But our company have changed as well, together with the world, I would say.
Okay, very good. And we'll come into that. We'll talk more about the group and also the cargo supermarket concept a little bit later on. So thank you very much, Yulia. And Chiara?
Well, as you mentioned, I have a bit of a dual role at the moment in SkyCell. So I'm indeed part of the business development director team, and I indeed focus on vaccine manufacturers. So I can tell you, 2020 has been very busy because when everything happened back in March, April, the vaccines, they still had to be delivered. So it became really challenging. As of June 1st, on top, I'm also leading the team of our airline partners managers. So we are also focusing more on the relationship with the airlines because it is important for us to stay close to them and make sure we really have a collaborative approach, especially today.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Right, now, guys, as a complete, almost like a relay team, everybody now in our sector has to come together, collaborate, communicate, and support each other, because that's how it's going to be successful. And especially now that the eyes of the world are on logistics. And even though cargo has suddenly, appeared and people are saying, oh, what an interesting subject and how does it work? And we never knew this and that's so good. And people are very, very interested in our sector now and the supply chain. And now because of the vaccines, it's going to really, really, really focus on it even more. Now, Yulia, from your perspective, with regards to the increased demand and expectation, when you're selecting handling agents or when you're selecting parties that can assist you with the ramp activity and making the whole process more secure, what criteria do you use and how important is it?
That's a good question, Chris. At the moment, we're talking almost on a weekly basis to each of our ground handlers in the network, in the scheduled network, to understand what their capabilities are and if they're willing to increase those, because we do know that, especially for the RNA vaccine, that seems to be the first one or the front runner, the minus temperatures, ultra low freezing temperatures are required for storage, which is -70, -80, -65 Celsius. And what we're doing right now, checking, when choosing partners, we're checking with them what their approach is. How do they treat this vaccine rush, I would call it. Some of them are still treating it as a project and not willing to invest in those deep freezers or, you know, increasing the capacities and capabilities. And I think it's what we're doing right now too is looking for backup solutions. So when we're flying to some bigger airports, like Beijing, for example, in China, and we do have signed agreement with one of the handling agents, we're now looking into backup solution to make sure that we're not disrupting the business, that if the facility is full, we can use another one.
Yeah, okay, very good. And it's good you pointed out there about even though everything is so high profile and high focus, there's still a cost element, and that comes into some of the decision making that, you know, that most organizations are having to do. I was talking to somebody earlier, and we were talking about, you know, if you look back how the industry's changed, we had a decade where everybody focused on quality, TQM and certification and accreditation, and everybody had to have a certificate. Then we went into a decade of cost controls, reductions, etc. And then we went into a decade of controls and forecasting and just in time. Now there's a little bit of a fallback to just in case. And we're now on this sort of decade of sustainability and continuity. So it's important to look at all mitigations and backup when we look at risk. So great that you brought that up. Now, Chiara and Jez, you've got a complete product portfolio between you that allows greater opportunity to make a decision subject to what the customer wants with the carrier. So how have you seen that improve in people's awareness, understanding, in their request to see what the options are? How have you seen that develop over the last 3 to 6 months, and especially, I would imagine, over the last 3 weeks?
Jess, I go.
You go first, alphabetical.
Thanks. So for us, I mean, yes, the past 3 weeks, but really the past 6 months. So we really had an increased amount of requests, and we saw our customer or new customer all of a sudden that had to be prepared to really implement new lanes, implement a different way of bringing the product from A to B. Because before, you know, it used to be maybe a passenger flight flying from this destination to that. And all of a sudden, the passenger flight is not flying anymore. So it was really a new setup that we have to deal with. For sure, at SkyCell, we believe in, you know, we have the technology to support us and support our customer. That's what is important for us. So being in control of the process for us was key. Was key when you have maybe to fly a container into an airport that is in lockdown and is congested. So it was through the technology of our container, we were able to do a lane risk assessment for our customer and already tell them before the product was even put on the plane, listen, this is the autonomy you're gonna have with this container. That's what, if everything goes as expected, this is plan A. If something go wrong, let's already prepare the plan B. So this is really how we came to support this unknown circumstances that we were facing.
Okay, and can I ask you now? Obviously, your one of your tags is safe, secure, and sustainable. Are you communicating directly now with the pharma companies and the freight forwarders so that they've got a better understanding of the capability and the overall cost spread against the risk?
Yes, it is important for us to have indeed a direct conversation with the pharma shippers as well, because, you know, also so many parties, somehow one is maybe more focused on the cost and the other one maybe more on the secure. So the pharma shipper is really that one that tends to have a 360 view of what is important. You know, Chris, I mean, pharma shippers, I mean, they all have in their targets sustainability. It's still big on everybody's agenda to achieve CO2 savings and more sustainable. So, and that you really get across when you have a direct conversation with the pharma shipper. They're most likely to have today, they also have a sustainability manager. They really have someone in the organization that is focusing on those kind of analysis.
Exactly, and I think again another byproduct of what's been happening is people are becoming more aware, and carbon footprint and everything else is so important, and it's going to be a key feature in 2021. Now, can I just ask you, while I've got you on there, you've got lots of different products. You've got your SkyCell 2500, and then you go down to your pallet units, which are the 770s. What's the difference, and which ones are the most popular at the moment?
Well, at the moment, the most popular is, as you mentioned, probably the 2500 series, where we can fit two pallet of the shipper inside. And definitely right now what we are, I mean, as SkyCell, we tend to fly high value commodity normally. So it's mainly a 2 to 8 range that we carry. We also have some oncology product that goes at 15 to 25. But definitely we are very strong already in delivering vaccines. So that's probably one of the commodity we fly the most in the SkyCell containers. Okay,
very good. Very good. Thank you for that. Now, Jez, pretty much a similar question to yourself. So, you know, how have things developed, and are you in communication directly with pharma organizations and also with freight forwarders to make sure that the right solution and right option is there?
100%. And I think what I've certainly picked up throughout the whole of the pandemic, and as the conversations, discussions and speculation about the vaccine coming out, is that partnership has become much more of a stronger focus. Instead of all these last minute approaches, there's been a lot more engaging discussions about how can we plan for what's going to happen. Now, for CSafe, I mean, as per the image behind me, we're very much known in the market for our active containers, the RKN and the RAP, which provide solutions for product temperature requirements from +4 to +25. But obviously with the vaccine, and talks about sub-zero temperatures, -20, -70, it's actually opened the door for a lot more conversations on what we're less renowned for at the minute, which is our passive solutions. I mean, we are the only packaging provider in the marketplace that offers both active and passive. So yes, we've been reached out to directly by the pharmaceutical companies. Some of them very, very well known in terms of the vaccine, as to how CSafe solutions can support, particularly the -70. And we've had the opportunity to develop something that is enabling us to support what's going to be the single biggest pharmaceutical product distribution in history.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's amazing, and it's going to be so challenging. Now, with that in mind, Yulia, and what you were saying about the transformation within your organization and the group, so you've got the Volga-Dnepr, you've got the air bridge, and then you've also got ATRAN. You've got a different
above my head.
Sorry?
All the logos above my head.
Yes, you've got more. It makes it very easy for me. But I love also the tags, you know, like the ABC Pharma, the ABC XL. Now you guys are specialists, and not just because you're there, but I think anybody in the industry who's ever seen one of your larger aircraft land or take off, they have to stop and look at it. It's an incredible piece of equipment. It's absolutely amazing. Now, with that in mind, and the fact that you've got a good fleet plus your 747s, you're also now under pressure as well, because now that the vaccines are going to take the primary focus in the eyes of many, we still have to keep the supply chain rolling whilst the passenger capacity is at a low ebb. So how are you balancing that out?
That's also a really good question, and it's a very big concern now. We are also having direct discussions with pharmaceutical companies and with freight forwarders in regards to this topic already. Because apart from general cargo that needs to be traveling from one airport to another, there are other vaccination programs, immunization programs, chemotherapies, insulins, and so on, right?
Exactly.
And we can't stop that and just give all the capacity, all the focus to vaccine COVID-19, which is really important. However, there are other life-saving pharmaceuticals that we need to transport. That is why in our company, we have given the priority to these kinds of commodity, all time and temperature sensitive products that are life-saving, are having the priority for booking and for capacity. We are even looking into optimizing the network to fit better into this portfolio of the vaccines, because our airport, our conventional convenient airports are not always there where the patients are. We need to travel to more remote areas, to more rural areas, which are less accessible, that still need vaccines. So we're trying to find this balance to adjust the network, adjust the capacity, and even maybe to, calculate if we can use some aircraft purely for transportation of pharmaceuticals only. So pharma flights, we call them.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's so important, and I think everybody in the entire community is going to have to rally round and be part of the overall solution. Now, the area that we're talking about with the one stop, one shop, are you also partnering up now with some smaller regional carriers who may be using the Praetor concept for further distribution? Are you doing anything like that, Yulia?
We do not have it yet with Praetor or this Praetor concept operator. Yeah. But of course, we do have interline agreements with a lot of airlines. However, it's really extremely important for us to choose the airline that have CEIV certification, that know what they're doing, that have quality management system. Otherwise, we cannot rely on their product. So yes, we're doing some of these collaborations, not to a big extent at this point, but we're anticipating to have it more, especially when vaccine hits the market.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's a good point you touched on there, because we've been discussing GDP, CEIV, and everybody's starting to realize that GDP has been around for such a long time and is the foundation, but the CEIV is a more specialist approach with regards to supply chain and especially aviation. Hugely important, and I'm sure everybody at IATA who thought about introducing it several years ago, when they were getting a lot of resistance, they've got a smile on their face now, because it's making a big difference, bringing everybody together and understanding what's being spoken about.
Indeed.
Now, I'd like to just come back again now to the actual equipment. Now, Chiara and Jez, when people are talking about CEIV and about the options to mitigate against any shortfalls, etc., and you guys come in as the solutions, do you agree that there's something that's so important, which is the way we train the people in how to use the solutions, not just that there's a solution provided? So who'd like to kick that?
I mean, for us, Chris, I mean, this is probably the key of SkyCell, is the easy to use. The containers are handed over to the pharma shipper, the freight forwarder, the airlines, preconditioned, ready to use. So it's really a matter of opening the container, put the product inside, close the door, seal it, and off it goes. This is really key, especially right now, Chris. We cannot fly. We cannot fly to train people in different airports at different pharma shippers. So it's really this possibility through video, through a call, we can really train, because there is not a manual they have to go through with the SkyCell. It's really a few checklists when you receive it, open the door, load it, close the door, and goes. This has really been playing in our advantage, despite we all miss traveling at SkyCell. But at least we can still keep on being closer to our network without being there.
Yeah, it's important, but it's so important to keep that competence level and awareness up, especially now as so many individuals, they've got a lot of stresses where some have come back off furlough, some have lost their colleagues, And for people who've lost their jobs through no fault of their own, it's a terrible, terrible, terrible experience. And a lot of SMS and human factors comes into it as well.
That was key for us also during lockdown. Chris, imagine you have a big airport like Mumbai that all of a sudden instead of having whatever 100 people working there, you only have 30 because of, you know, they're working in groups, the social distancing. And so with an equipment that is easy to handle, it really gives you a peace of mind. You're not crossing fingers hoping that the guy that is on duty that day when your container arrives knows what to do. So that really played in our advantage for sure, especially during, I mean, then maybe we will see again, we don't know, congestion airports, maybe we will see it again. So it's important to have something that it's easy to handle. Yeah.
Yeah, true enough, true enough. And Jez, yourself, I mean, obviously you've got like VIP parcel boxes and you've got different frozen storage options. You know, how have you found that with regards to capability, competence, and an appreciation as to why it's so important to handle in a certain way?
Well, I mean, similar to what Chiara has mentioned. I mean, CSafe solutions, whether it's the active or the passive solutions, are very user-friendly. You don't need a degree to be able to turn on, precondition, and load and utilize the RKN or the RAP. And the pack out on the passive solutions that we offer, again, is very user-friendly. So the ability to be able to conduct training and using platforms like we're using today for this meeting has meant that we've been able to maintain the standards of people when it comes to handling our products. And it's also enabled us to expand our network through periods of long lockdown. We've had the opportunity to broaden our global footprint and by virtual training, developments in our own online training platform, ensuring that the people have the knowledge and the competencies to handle it in the correct manner.
Can I ask you something, Jez, and Chiara as well, if you want to throw in, with regard to your units, the level of damage, how was that pre-COVID?
Ooh.
I did not notice much change on that because, you know, we still fly in a pharma service. So it's still, you know, the almost white glove service of the airline. So in that case, I did not notice any difference.
Okay, and Jez?
I would say that certainly the number of incidents of major damage, particularly to the active containers, has reduced. One of the most common things that we do see is use of forklift blades to try and push containers. Now our training, which we further developed and highlighted the correct locations where you can use forklifts, not only to pick the containers up, but also to maneuver them around the warehouse. So I think there's certainly been a lot more focus and care that's been given to the containers and the handling, which is going to be even more critical when it comes to the high profile of the COVID vaccines, because damaging, whether it's a passive parcel solution or an active container, and potentially threatening the movement is not what we want to see.
Yeah, a couple of youngsters, very young, 14 and 15 years of age. They were asking me about, you know, what's going to happen? How does the vaccines get transported in aircraft, etc. I was telling them about containers and boxes, etc. And what they were saying is that there should be more visual, you know, signs, designs, or whatever, to make everybody understand exactly what was in there, and that they should take a lot more care. Obviously, that's just from you know, two youngsters who are still at school and don't know anything about it. But they were saying that we should have really, you know, fancy, obvious markings and let everybody know how important it is. What do you think about that?
Well, I know from my time served in the airline industry, it was very difficult to go into the operation and try and explain and make people understand that what they're moving is not just a box. And it would be fantastic to put flashing lights on, the same as you see on an ambulance.
Yeah.
But there is something in there that could potentially save your own life, a friend's life in the future. So it's really about changing perception of really what's inside the box, not just thinking outside it, what's inside it.
Yeah, I agree. Now, Yulia, you've been involved in lots of training sessions, and you're part of the healthcare and humanitarian sector. You know, you're very focused, and it shows from your organisation, your group, how important they place this particular, this particular product, this particular sector. What do you think with regards to, the need for that competence and awareness now to be pushed and pushed and pushed, so that people understand not what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, but they really, really appreciate why they need to do it in a certain way?
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with Jess. We have to make sure that people understand what's inside of the box, but also more importantly, who is behind this order, the patient.
Yeah.
And we are highlighting that on every workshop and training session. We conduct internal trainings and workshops with freight forwarders, container providers, and shippers, so manufacturers of the vaccines and pharmaceutical products, our ground handlers. So we're trying to combine everyone, because I heard so many times this word collaboration. It's great. I think it's good when people are focusing on that, but I think it have to be not only on paper or on video, but also it have to really be executed. Because I was reading a few weeks ago a white paper of some freight forwarder, and they mentioned that the collaboration and further development between pharmaceutical companies and freight forwarders is critical. Well, I agree on that, but I think also they are missing some of the very important stakeholders that needs to be in the same informational field, right?
Yeah.
Which are airlines, container providers, airport handlers, and so on. And that's where the educational process needs to be focused, I think, combining all stakeholders, everybody from the supply chain. If
Yep.
links from the chain are strong and others are not, well, that's not working.
No, 100%, Yulia. Now, Yulia, I just want to ask you as well, and obviously yourself and Casper, you've got a task force. Now, that's a term that's being used, again, a little bit like the old new normal, and people are saying, how many task forces can there be? And, you've got government task forces, carrier, airports, GHAs, regulators, representative bodies, integrators, charter brokers, private aviation, last mile, first mile, facilities, etc., trainers. You've got all these task forces. What's your experience of task force collaboration? So, getting everybody together.
Mm-hmm. Our task force is an internal group of people, I would say, from various airlines within the group of the companies. And our main idea is to combine those people plus add some medical expertise, because we do have some medical experts within the group of the companies. And that helps us to really monitor the global development plus educate ourselves first. There's a lot of other associations, initiatives on the market that are really great by combining, they're doing a good job in combining all stakeholders, and we're also participating in those. But our task force is focused really on internal processes and quality and educating ourselves.
Okay, fair enough. And what about you, Chiara and Jez? Are you involved in any task forces with, whether it be governments, airports, carriers?
We are working on a lot of government projects. We've been involved in a lot of those kind of task force, indeed. We also collaborate with some airports that have the task force, and some airlines also invited us to join the task force. So yes, much wider collaboration indeed.
That's one good thing that's coming.
True.
I hope you all agree. The one thing that people have started to do is open up a little bit, not keep things always to themselves. And, people are getting rid of this legacy of waste and bureaucracy. I think it's a good thing.
But at all levels, I mean, you see also the pharmaceutical company themselves, they're really collaborating, like sharing knowledge, sharing, validation data is really different. Yeah. Yeah,
no, very good. And Jez?
Yeah, so we're involved, at airport levels, we're involved in the task forces within airlines, within freight forwarders. Obviously, we have a setup internally, but that's focusing not only on COVID vaccines, but this is day-to-day operationally from all the other products that we've been moving throughout our history. And it's great to be part of it. And it's great, as you mentioned, to see that slightly more opening up. I still think there's a little bit more opening up that could be done. Yeah. But I think as we get closer and closer to D-Day, Distribution Day, that openness will be very prominent, and so it may well change supply chains moving forward. Yeah, it's yeah. I think there's every opportunity that will happen. Now, tracking. Okay, so it's going to be so important to be able to track what's going on. Just from your perspective, Jez and Chiara, to get your equipment returned, you know, how are you seeing that, especially now, if there's going to be such a high demand now for supply chain capacity? Well, I mean, in terms of tracking, I mean, CSafe through over the last 12 months has been working on a new initiative, a track and trace project that will see devices fully integrated into the active container fleet. So that will starts to go live next month. Perfect timing for tracking of the containers as they move around the world, but also providing the shipment information and that peace of mind that the containers are performing, and that as soon as it's on arrival, people know that the temperature's been maintained and it's usable product. That's also going to help us logistically when it comes to moving containers around the world to meet the various different points of demand. Yeah. And we've also invested in an AI platform that's been in operation and been put to very good tests through 2020. That helps, again, forecasting and planning where containers will need to be. And the track and trace will then supplement that even further. Okay, good. And you've got no concerns with, you know, getting the empty equipment back or getting it to areas where it's necessary then for further use? I would say there's always going to be challenges. I mean, with such deficits in belly hold capacity today, it's presenting challenges. So we look at various possible solutions, and we work with our airline partners in support, and then also tailor some of our leasing packages so that it benefits all parties and helps manage the inventory around the network. Okay, very good. And Chiara?
From a technology point of view, we are there. I mean, we have IoT technology in the container. So on that point of view, I think we're very well prepared with the visibility and monitoring of the temperature. What we instead, I mean, when you talk about reverse logistics, indeed, Chris, nobody wants to fly empty containers today. I can tell you that much. Yeah. For which we instead have been investing a lot in opening new service centers. So it makes sense, you know, you fly from Europe to China, there is a service center, clean, preconditioned, and out from China to LATAM. So really trying to utilize the container in all the legs they fly. That's what we are trying to achieve. And as well, we have our partner airlines. We try to plan with them, give alternative to where we can return the containers. So this is indeed a point. Nobody wants to fly empty containers. You're very correct. So we really need to again, collaborate, work together, do what we can to maximize. When a container flies, it's because there is pharmaceutical product inside, indeed.
Exactly. Now, Yulia, can I ask you, with all the focus that's going on within your group, what do you think has been the biggest successes of that particular focus? What has it brought as far as benefits and understanding, awareness, you know, commercial opportunities, etc.?
Yes, I mean, the volumes that we are the volumes of pharmaceuticals that we are transporting have increased this year, but for known reasons. Less passenger belly capacity, of course. So we cannot say that it's our, you know, great achievement. We are trying to help as much as we can, and this is the vision of the owner of our group of the companies to be like healthcare provider number one, maybe at a certain point, and to create really a pharma airline as well. You know, that is the concept we're looking into, and this is part of our value portfolio. And yes, we're slowly but surely moving towards this goal, I would say.
Okay, okay, very, very good. And same question, Jez and Chiara, what real, you know, what have been the successes that stand out to you that will carry you forward now over this next 6 to 9 months when it's going to be so important?
I think from CSafe's perspective, we have been able to keep the containers moving, and demand has gone up considerably. So, I mean, that with higher demand presents various different challenges, but we've been able to maintain the availability of the containers around the network. We've been able to support the distribution of other forms of vaccines, insulins, which is particularly important for myself as a type 1 diabetic. So yeah, I mean, we've been able to the operation has not fallen down at any point. So there's things we will certainly take away into the future. And with the fact that we've been able to continue to expand the network, expand the product portfolio, I think that just puts us even stronger position for, dare I say, if COVID-20 was to ever arrive.
Yeah. Well, let's keep that one away, Jez. But please God, we'll have learnt enough to be able to accommodate and sort that out. And God bless the scientists who've been doing miracles. So amazing.
You're right.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you something. Again. All of you now, if you were able to wave a magic wand, or you had the gift of making the supply chain do something in a certain way, what would that be? What would you want to see happen? Yulia?
I would use this word again, collaboration, but really working with open books. And we see these levels of collaboration that pharma companies are having right now. I think we can learn something from that. So I would maybe say partnering with the other airlines to offer these unique solutions, not only using our capabilities within the group of the companies, but expanding to other airlines.
Okay.
It's not magic, really. I think it's realistic. Just need to work towards it.
Yeah. No, very good. And Chiara?
Yeah, well, it goes with collaboration probably as well, transparency. You know, sometimes, and it's good what the exercise Yulia is doing, trying to really map out the capability of the airports. And sometimes you have the feeling you would like to have more transparency in this part, to really understand what is exactly the capabilities when a shipment is booked, to already starting to have an understanding, will that pallet have access to a cool room? Yes or no? If not, what's then? So also really transparency in the market would be good.
Okay, yeah, very good. And Jez?
Chiara's just stolen my word. No, I think transparency. I mean, things, as I've already mentioned, things have changed over through the last 6 to 8 months. Things aren't crystal clear yet, and people are not being completely open. But I think transparency will enable success. Partnership will deliver a success. Collaboration will deliver success. There's lots of words, lots of adjectives that will make the world the better place that we want it to be, and no more lockdowns and self-isolation.
Yeah. Please God. And data sharing being a key ingredient with that. Now, Yulia, again, and it's very obvious. It's obvious from your backdrop. It's obvious from what I've seen the group do. I've spoken to Constantine, yourself. Everything that you guys are doing is really, really positive. Now, when you look at who you have to rely on to make sure that the end-to-end is successful and that your contribution influences that success, when you're looking downstream at the GHAs that you select and use. You have to do obviously risk assessments, etc., but you have to do audits. You rely on self-assessments, etc. How much additional focus are you giving now with regards to the capability of handling the pharmaceutical vaccine products more than ever before?
We're having weekly meetings with all our ground handlers within network to share the information that we have, because their main complaint and their main concern is they're always left a little bit aside. You know, they're not getting the same amounts of information like the airlines are getting, or the container providers, or any other suppliers. So that's what we're doing right now, and trying to check how we can maybe together make some tailor-made solutions. For example, we in the airports, they do not have enough freezing capacities or coolers. Can we utilize the GDP trucks or reefer trailers just to use it as a storage facility? It's just one example. Or getting the dry ice in a swift manner. How can we assist them with that task as well? So all these weekly routine discussions are happening right now.
Okay, that's very good. And just to add on to that, and this is just, you know, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot here at all. I'm probably the only one who can say what I think. But with regards to choices, okay, if there are a lot of choices, then people have to make decisions. And if cost becomes one of the choice influencers, sometimes the decisions might not be the best. So if there are certain practices that you're witnessing and experiencing that don't make as much sense for the vaccines, especially with the condition and the temperature controls that are required, do you think there's an opportunity now, either by airports or by the collective community, to almost, you know, just like a just culture, to report that this is now making it very difficult for the supply chain to deliver the expectation of the vaccines?
I would look at this from a different perspective. I think customs might become a very big, you know, problem, but we, even as a community or whatever task forces, we cannot solve this. So I think there have to be a little bit more governmental attention to this topic, and otherwise, this very sensitive vaccine with very low data available at the moment that have to be distributed and consumed or injected within 10-15 days, we are going to damage and we'll have to trash so much of these vaccines just because of these complications. So I think that have to be looked into. And security, pilferage. That's another very important topic. I think, especially if you're going to different airports that are not so, I would call them safe, or as safe as others. So how can we ensure that? We as an airline, difficult. Containers is a good solution. It's more difficult, you know, to access containers, but there are also pharmaceuticals and vaccines that will be flying as passive boxes. So we have to look into this part. Yeah,
no, thank you for that. And especially with the one with the pilferage all the way from first mile to last mile, everybody's going to have to be, you know, very confident that it's going to be very, very, very secure, because we can't allow any negative publicity at all with this. Now, you mentioned also with spoilage. So question I would ask you, Chiara and Jez, if you were obviously making decisions with the producers and the end users, you would say the best and the obvious way, put it in containers, make sure it's got the least amount of contact as possible, at least the least amount of steps, the least amount of exposure to excessive heats or cold, etc. So you would be promoting your own goods. Now, with regards to the cost impact, lots of people are going to choose alternative measures and methods. What's your opinion on that?
I think I've been lucky so far to work with pharmaceutical company where the decision is taken by quality, by procurement, by logistics. So if there is a company where a decision is only in the hands of procurement, it's not the ideal scenario right now, Chris. I mean, the quality team, they need to make sure their voice is heard. it sounds a bit silly. They've worked so hard to deliver these vaccines, yep. And then at the end they're gonna say, no, we're gonna save. Because then really, when you look at the end to end, because that's what they have to look. They really have to walk end to end. It's really not costing them much more. If they only limit themselves to maybe do the analysis airport to airport, then yes, you're gonna look into a cheaper packaging, an airline that has 15 stops instead of the direct flight. And they really need to stop and say, is it worth it? Yeah. Is it really worth it to take the risk just to save a little bit? I think on the plate, there is a lot this time to just have a procurement driven decision.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Jez?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I think often gets overlooked is the actual total cost of ownership. So not just looking at how much a box is going to cost you, or how much the air freight is, or a reefer truck versus just a standard truck. It's looking at everything and then using risk assessments that the quality teams deliver. And what the end goal is. Being a type 1 diabetic and reliant on insulin, I've stood up many times and I've said, I don't care if you listen to anything that I'm presenting on. I just want you to remember the next time you think about cutting a corner to save 50 cents or $1 here or there, remember it could be my life that you're affecting. And I think because of the size and scope of the COVID vaccine, I mean, that's the type of message that I think that should be promoted, is that we are messing with everybody's life if we don't get it right.
Yeah, and everybody who rolls their sleeves up, they expect that the journey from freezer to arm is secure. And if there's been any deviation and what's being then injected into you is spoiled, I mean, that's a terrible, terrible thing to be thinking about.
Yeah, so again, we go back to transparency from the production site to the arm. We need to be able to provide the assurances that it has traveled as it needs to, and it is going to be injected and do the job it needs to do.
Yeah, 100%. Right, just to finish, guys, now, is there anything that you'd like to give if it was a message to people who would be skeptical or would be asking questions or even suggesting that logistics aren't ready? Is there anything, last positive message you'd like to give, Yulia?
Just to keep in mind that we are all little pieces and fragments of one big supply chain. And when one of these links is weak, then the complete supply chain is under danger. So just to keep it in mind and to be open-minded and to talk to each other, communicate and exchange knowledge and ideas for more secured and well-prepared logistics for the vaccine.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And Chiara?
I mean, we at SkyCell, we are really rolling up our sleeves. We have big numbers of production coming out to support, because yes, of course, there is the COVID vaccine, Chris, but we cannot let down, and we don't want to let down our other pharmaceutical company that have to keep on shipping the meningitis vaccines either. So we really need to make sure the container availability is there. We also, on our point of view, I mean, in 2020, we really had several charters operation. This is something we might see, which was a good, testing ground for us, because at times we need to deliver like 64 containers in one day. So it's, I think 2020 was a good platform to jump into 2021. And to the pharma shipper is just, please make sure you choose the right packaging, the right airline, make sure you're in control of the process. So just, we are here to support, of course.
Yeah, no. And it's, people like yourselves, well done. It's fantastic what everybody's doing. And, to recognize everybody that's on the front line, huge respect. And equally all the poor people that have been displaced because of the drop. So the scientists have done a wonderful job. Now what we all got to do is get everybody back in planes, get the planes back in the air, and touch wood, get back to you know, something as good as we'd all like to see it as quickly as possible. To the three of you, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great pleasure. It's always nice to talk to people who've got a passion and an engagement in what they do and for the companies they work for. So really well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.